our shirt on Teespring.
Police brutality is a stain on America. It is the excessive and unwarranted use of force by law enforcement. This force can be physical. It can also be psychological. It leaves victims physically injured, emotionally scarred, and sometimes even dead. Police brutality is a betrayal of the very people police are sworn to protect and serve. It undermines trust in law enforcement and creates fear and anger in communities. Police brutality takes many forms. It includes beatings. It includes shootings. It includes chokeholds and other uses of deadly force. It includes verbal abuse, racial profiling, and intimidation. It can happen to anyone, but it disproportionately impacts Black and brown communities. The consequences of police brutality are devastating. Victims suffer physical injuries, psychological trauma, and even death. Families are torn apart by the loss of loved ones. Communities are left shattered and distrustful of the police. The cycle of violence continues, eroding the fabric of society. The fight against police brutality is a fight for justice, equality, and the fundamental human right to safety and security. It is a fight that demands accountability, transparency, and a radical transformation of law enforcement in America. The roots of police brutality in the United States run deep. They can be traced back to the nation's origins, entangled with the legacy of slavery. In the South, slave patrols were the precursors to modern police forces. These patrols were groups of white men who enforced discipline on enslaved people, often with brutal force. After the Civil War, these patrols evolved into formal police departments, but their mission remained largely the same: to control and oppress Black communities. The Jim Crow era saw widespread police brutality against Black people, who were denied basic rights and subjected to violence and intimidation. The civil rights movement of the 20th century brought the issue of police brutality to the forefront of American consciousness. Images of peaceful protesters being attacked by police dogs and fire hoses shocked the nation. The brutal response to the movement only fueled the fight for equality and justice. Despite some progress, police brutality continues to plague the United States. The names of victims like Emmett Till, Rodney King, and George Floyd serve as tragic reminders of the systemic racism and violence that persist within law enforcement. The brutal beating of Rodney King by Los Angeles police officers in 1991, and the subsequent acquittal of the officers, sparked outrage and riots in Los Angeles. The incident, captured on video, brought the issue of police brutality into America's living rooms, forcing the nation to confront the reality of racialized police violence. The death of Amadou Diallo in 1999 further exposed the deadly consequences of racial profiling. Diallo, an unarmed immigrant from Guinea, was shot 41 times by New York City police officers who mistook his wallet for a gun. His death sparked protests against police brutality and racial profiling, particularly in New York City. The killing of Trayvon Martin in 2012, an unarmed Black teenager shot by a neighborhood watch volunteer, ignited a national conversation about race, gun violence, and the criminal justice system. The case highlighted the dangers faced by Black youth and the lack of accountability for those who perpetrate violence against them. These incidents, along with countless others, demonstrate the systemic nature of police brutality and the urgent need for comprehensive reform. They serve as stark reminders of the human cost of inaction and the importance of continuing the fight for justice and equality. The statistics on police brutality in the United States are alarming. According to Mapping Police Violence, a research group that tracks police killings, police killed at least 1,364 people in 2024, marking another record year. This means that there were only 13 days in the entire year when police did not kill someone in the United States. These killings disproportionately impact Black people, who are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than white people. In 2024, New Mexico had the highest rate of police killings per capita, while Texas had the highest total number of killings. These numbers paint a bleak picture of the state of policing in America. The problem extends beyond fatal encounters. Data from The Guardian shows that police use force on at least 300,000 people annually, injuring around 100,000. This includes the use of tasers, pepper spray, batons, and other forms of physical force. The data clearly shows that police brutality is not a problem of a few bad apples. It is a systemic issue that demands a systemic response. Section 5. The Blue Wall of Silence. One of the most significant obstacles to addressing police brutality is the code of silence that often exists within law enforcement. This blue wall of silence discourages officers from reporting misconduct by their colleagues, creating a culture of impunity. Officers who do speak out often face retaliation, including harassment, demotion, or even firing. Police unions, powerful organizations that represent law enforcement officers, often contribute to this culture of silence. While unions play an important role in protecting the rights of officers, they also often defend officers accused of misconduct, even in cases where there is clear evidence of wrongdoing. This lack of accountability makes it difficult to hold officers responsible for their actions. It also erodes public trust in law enforcement, as people see officers acting with impunity and facing no consequences for their actions. Breaking down the blue wall of silence is essential for creating a culture of accountability and transparency within law enforcement. This requires changing the culture from within, encouraging officers to speak out against misconduct and holding those who abuse their power accountable. Section 6. A system ripe for abuse. The issue of police brutality is further exacerbated by a number of systemic factors. The militarization of police departments, with access to military-grade weapons and equipment, has led to an increase in the use of force. The lack of adequate training, particularly in de-escalation techniques and cultural sensitivity, contributes to the problem. Qualified immunity, a legal doctrine that shields government officials, including police officers, from civil lawsuits unless their actions violated clearly established law, makes it extremely difficult to hold officers accountable for misconduct. This doctrine creates a high bar for victims seeking justice and allows officers to escape accountability for even egregious abuses of power. The lack of diversity within many police departments also contributes to the problem. A police force that does not reflect the racial and ethnic makeup of the community it serves is more likely to engage in racial profiling and other forms of bias. Addressing these systemic issues is crucial for creating lasting change. This requires comprehensive reforms, including demilitarizing police departments, providing officers with better training, ending qualified immunity, and diversifying police forces.